When will Bitcoin rally to new all-time highs? What we're seeing right now is unbelievable. Before the halving, we've never really seen such phenomenal price action going to as high as revisiting the old all-time highs. We're in an unprecedented cycle right now, and will we see new all-time highs before the halving in the coming weeks? Let's dive into the video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward, and let's dive right into it. So this is the pre-halving phase, the pre-halving rally. We've been talking about it, how we broke out from this reaccumulation range, and we've just been going vertical since then, experiencing only a very shallow 4% dip. And historically, we don't really see much dipping, and 2020 has shown us that small dips do occur, but generally this is a very strong rally going all the way into the halving, which is where a pre-halving retrace occurs only a handful of weeks before the halving itself. So this means that we still have many weeks of this pre-halving rally phase ahead. But the thing about this phase is that it's already at 61k, and that's the old all-time high region. So we're very close to breaking to new all-time highs. And who would have thought that we were going to break to these new highs, or at least get this close to them? Because we've been looking at the history, the historical cycles for Bitcoin, and these sort of resistances have been rejecting price before the halving event, prompting pre-halving retraces. We've seen that this red block in 2020, for instance, also a resistance that only gets claimed as a support after the halving. And in 2016 also, this is a red region of resistance that was rejecting price before the halving, but was getting retested as a new support after the halving. But what's happening right now in this cycle is that we have simply just broken beyond it, and we're actually challenging this final monthly resistance. And right now, we're just below that resistance, very close to old all-time highs, and it's all happening before the halving event. So what has historically taken a few months for Bitcoin after the halving to consolidate, reclaim an old resistance, historically this has been the case, but we're just seeing further upside before the halving without any dipping into what is an essential level to reclaim as support, technically speaking, but we've simply broken beyond here. So if we're able to break to new all-time highs before the halving, that would be unprecedented, and we're already seeing unprecedented price action. If you just look at this chart, for instance, this 8-degree macro diagonal has always resisted price. These orange circles showcase points of rejection from this macro diagonal before the halving event. And you can see here in 2016, this was the case as well, rejection before the halving event, but ultimately a reclaim of this trend line as a new support, but after the halving. So this black circle showcases how we reclaim this level as a new support many months after the halving, and it's approximately 200 days after the halving where we tend to rally to new all-time highs. This has been the case in 2016, but also in 2020. So if we're rallying this close to new all-time highs, if we're thinking about this 200-day period after the halving, and we're rallying already this much, approximately a month before the halving, then are we having a accelerated cycle where we're seeing new all-time highs already before the halving, potentially? Because if it takes 200 days after the halving and we're rallying a month before, then we're probably 240 days ahead of schedule if we're really to think about it in those terms. Because what typically happens 200 days after the halving is almost happening right now. So 240 days ahead of schedule. If we break to new all-time highs in the coming week, then there could be a very real case that we are those 240 days ahead of schedule. But that being said, in one of my previous videos, I spoke about how we oscillate from periods of underperformance and then overperformance in a cycle. And this is a cycle that's going to be slightly different to previous ones, where we're seeing overperformance in a period of historical underperformance, even 2016. We saw a breakout from here, but this breakout was still limited because it preceded rejection. It was at a lower high relative to this macro diagonal, whereas here we've broken beyond this macro diagonal, and this is going to be the first month ever where we've monthly closed beyond this macro diagonal. We're seeing Bitcoin go against the grain of history, and this is a phenomenal chart to just showcase to you how history is changing, how things are completely changing. We're getting a monthly close beyond this macro diagonal in just a couple of days, and so we may even be able to get this monthly close beyond this monthly resistance. Let's see. Price is rallying an extraordinary amount already since the breakout earlier this week. So it will be very interesting to see if we can even weekly close beyond the 65k region, because if we can, then those new all-time highs are going to come sooner than many expected, and maybe even in the coming weeks. However, if we do reject from here, then there's going to be scope for some slowing down in the sell side, or at least buy side momentum. We could see slowing down because technically this pre-halving retrace has occurred in the past. Around halvings, we just simply tend to see traders sell their positions, and there's a big change in the market. The blockchain protocol undergoes a major shift, the Bitcoin blockchain protocol. So this really doesn't impact these pre-halving retraces, and I'm not saying we're going to get a retrace into these levels. This blue circle simply denotes a phase, and this phase typically occurs around this point in the cycle. It's been the case in 2012, 2016, and 2020, as we can see here as well. So will Bitcoin go against the grain of history again and actually invalidate a pre-halving retrace? I still think that there is going to be a pre-halving retrace. Maybe it's shallower than what we've seen in the past. We've seen a 20% retrace right over here. Maybe it's going to be shallower. Maybe we should be a bit more conservative about downside targets when it comes to this pre-halving retrace, but nonetheless, I do believe that one will occur. We simply can't go up in a straight line, even though we've already been doing that for the better part of several weeks now. But we have to also understand that we have seen an 18% retrace this past January. It's just the end of February, so lots has happened since then in the course of a month. But we can't forget that these sort of 18% pullbacks can happen, and they have happened very recently. So what's going to happen in the future, we can never really tell. But why can't we think about a potential 18% retrace occurring once again, especially since we've seen retraces around the halving occur many times before? So we can see here, Bitcoin is going against the grain of history, but when we think about these macro diagonal breakouts, just notice how this was a rejection and then we reclaim it as a support. Well, here we've just broken beyond this resistance and we haven't reclaimed it as a support. So could the pre-halving retrace enable at least an intent to get closer to this macro diagonal? Maybe we don't have to drop into this level for a picture perfect retest, and in fact we've many times front run key levels on pullbacks. Maybe we just dip this much into these levels. Maybe there's an intent to get to the macro diagonal, but we don't actually get there. Whatever the case may be, there is always going to be scope for some sort of dip in price action the closer we get to the halving. That's still a few weeks away. This monthly close is going to be a historic one, and all we can do really is enjoy this price action as we get closer and closer to what will be the parabolic stages in this cycle. Well, typically they tend to occur 200 days after the halving, but is this phase going to occur a little bit sooner than expected? Really important not to get caught up in the euphoria of things because we haven't broken to new all-time highs just yet. we're still below that major resistance, and as long as we're below this major resistance, then still we could see some sort of point of rejection, some slowing in the buy side momentum. We're still firmly in the pre-halving rally phase, so whether we still see explosive upside, maybe limited upside, slowing down, a pre-halving retrace should occur a handful of weeks before the halving event, and as long as this resistance doesn't give way, then there's scope for that rejection to take place. But let's enjoy this historic monthly candle close. It's on the cusp of occurring. It's soon going to be confirmed, and what a difference this is compared to what we've seen in the past. Rejection from macro diagonal resistances. Now we could see a historic monthly close beyond this macro diagonal for the first time ever to confirm that Bitcoin indeed is going against the grain of history. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoyed this content, and going forward would like to see more videos like this in the future. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.